Hello again, friends! It's good to see you here. Now, why was I absent so long? Well, there are a few things to think about. One thing is when you're just starting out at YouTube, most of the time it's just you have to take time, which you don't have, and use it for being a fool in front of a camera, and then edit and then upload and then moderate everything you have. So most people don't have that kind of time, myself included. What happened during those last few years? A lot of things that happened. COVID ended, a war started, many wars started, migrations happened, Rome was falling again. A lot of stuff is happening, to be quite frank. A lot of my time was eaten by university. As many of you may know, university really likes to eat your money and your liver and your time. So since I finished my bachelor's and I started studying master's degree, but I took an academic leave because when you're a student you don't have to pay taxes. Scratch that idea, but never mind. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. Anyway, so what changed during those last few years? A lot of stuff. My workshop has gotten upgraded many times. I even participated in a filming of a very famous musician's video. I didn't show up in the video, only my tools, my anvil, and on occasions you could see not an amateur person swinging a hammer. But apart from that, I didn't show up in the video, but still, nonetheless, it was a very cool experience. And what I really would like to show you is what exactly did I change, what exactly did I modify, what exactly do I try to do, but there's a kind of paradox usually when you try to show people what you have been working on and you didn't take, well, good pictures of them and you don't have anything to show. So now, if I remember correctly, my last two videos were about building this place, but I showed nothing about installing the place. I showed nothing of the electrical done, nothing of the insulation done, nothing of the sidewalls, the siding, nothing, because I'm an idiot and to make consistent footage is very difficult. So I don't have any of that footage, sadly, at all. This is where you come into the forge. This is new concrete flooring because earlier on I had many troubles with very shit flooring. Then we have my new ribbon burner forge, custom made, a 2-meter long belt sander, drill press, fabricating table, the light, so many lights. There is a huge mess on the workbench. At first I had a very huge sturdy workbench that was anchored to the ground, but then I thought since it's a very small shop it's better to have mobility rather than something very heavy. And in the end I thought that I never actually do any kind of heavy work on the bench, so I just swapped it out for a table that is welded from angle irons with a 2mm thick sheet of steel, and that's completely enough for me. And it also has 2 casters just in case I want to move anything. I think I didn't even show the original coal forge. So the coal forge is very simple. It has a deep fire pot, quite deep, not as deep as some. I usually burn papers and trash here. And the blower is outside of the forge to minimize noise. So it's quite quiet, and it has a regulator which doesn't work anymore, and I don't know if it's this guy or the blower that's bad. Also, next to the coal forge I have a small wood fire stove. The stove is made out of a hot tub, a wooden hot tub. Basically it was completely different. It didn't have this door here. It was completely closed here, and it was like a tube going upwards. Therefore, you would submerge this in water, burn wood inside, and it would heat up the hot tub. But since the hot tub has rotten away, I just used it for making something to get warm here. But it doesn't draft that well. It's just some kind of, you know, a joke that I tried to do. It helped, but then it's all the tubes suited up, you know, with creosote, and it doesn't draft anymore. So I'm probably going to dismantle it because since I use gas forge primarily, it just heats the shop very well. And what's this? This is a Soviet 1972 electric furnace with new parts from AliExpress. Very safe, very safe. It has 220 for touching, you know, electric stimulation for your muscles to relax you permanently. And it works. I just need to isolate all of this, and it takes 1 hour to heat up. Well, it's good. I mean, it works. As we all know, the good saying, it looks stupid, but it works. It ain't stupid. So I'll use it for heat treating and tempering once I have something, because I want to move on making tools. Earlier, I mentioned that I have a new floor, and what does that mean? Originally, when in, I think, video part 1, I showed how my friend and I were pouring the concrete floor. But what happened is that the concrete became very shit, and it gives off a lot of dust. This is like the original one. It basically just brushes off. When I was working here a lot, what the big problem was is that there would be such a huge amount of dust accumulated, not only from the grinding of metal, but also from the concrete dust, that when you had a slight draft, the wind would pick up all of the particles, and you were just basically smelling cement. And cement has in its composition lime, therefore I think lime, I can't remember. In any ways, it's just so bad for you. So then I had a neighbor who said he's an expert come over to re-pour a new floor. And jokingly, here's the part where I did without his help, and it's just full of crap. But underneath all of that crap is concrete, which doesn't make dust. The reason why is that I made the mix very thick. I didn't make it wet, and I added a lot of Portland cement, and it doesn't make any dust. But then he came over and said, no, let's make it all wet so it's easier to level it out. Since he's an old guy, I didn't want to negotiate with him, and he was annoying, so I said, let's do it. And then the same thing as of this happened with the dust. And I wasted a huge amount of time and a huge amount of money because I listened to an old guy who supposedly said he knows what he's doing. But that was a good lesson, that most of the time it's not age that dictates a person's knowledge. And it's best to do your own research. Of course, respect your elders, but I mean, do your research. Anyway, fast forward a few years, and this, like 5 or 6 months ago, I saved a bit of money, and I hired a few guys to come over and do a screed mix. It's not like wet poured concrete, it's like semi-dry concrete and sand mix, and they leveled it out really well. It's not ideal, it's not industrial concrete, so it does chip away a bit. If a hammer falls down, it will chip away at the surface. Like, there are some marks here that I can't find anymore since they're full of dust. Like here, for example, here's a mark. So, but the fact is that there's all of this dust you see is only from metal. The concrete doesn't make dust at all. So in the future I'll buy a shop vacuum and I'll just vacuum all of this, and it will be much more nice to work. And also because of this, I had the opportunity to make carts for all of my bigger tools, meaning all of my forge, my grinder, and my drill press. I bought a set of casters from Lidl for like 6 or 7 euros, and they supposedly hold 150 kilograms. And they do, and it's so convenient to have grinders and all of your heavy equipment on casters if it's a small workshop. It's just very good update. Just to show you what I mean, here I have my ribbon burner forge, and this is my script. I can move it away a bit, then I can take my grinder, get it here to the workbench if I need to grind some bitty parts. Then if I need my drill press, I can move my grinder, and I can take my drill press. It's so cool. It's only like 18 square meters of space here, but I can move everything and keep organized. Now, probably the most important thing of this workshop, and the reason why I started building this, is that big thing over there. Now, I don't exactly recall what I showed in the last videos about this power hammer. I do remember that I showed how I cleaned it, how I ground all of the old paint off it, and how it was a miserable experience. But I didn't show anything about forging with it, fixing it, anything. So what I can tell now from a few years of use is that it is so heavily nuanced. It needs so much maintenance, which I can't do yet, but it sort of works. Very big difference with this power hammer from others is that usually when you turn on a power hammer, it instantly goes into idle mode. It lifts up, it lifts up, and then it starts to hammer once you press down a pedal. This hammer, it doesn't. It's sort of a safety feature, which I actually quite enjoy. Then you press the pedal and it lifts up. But it doesn't really forge that well sometimes. The main reason why I find difficulties with this hammer is that it's very old. It's made in 1959 in the very forest reaches of Soviet Union, almost next to Japan, and it traveled 6,000 kilometers to my country of Lithuania. And now what's the big issue is that it's a Soviet machine. Soviet machines are very roughly made, but they work, sort of. One of the most annoying parts of this is that the upper die of the ram is completely welded on. So it's impossible to take the die off for any maintenance. You have to take the whole ram out of the cylinder if you want to do any kind of maintenance, which we did with a friend a few weeks ago. We drilled some holes into the dies as well for some saddle dies, or how do you call them? But I haven't made any of them yet. Now, one of the biggest issues with this hammer is that when you press the pedal, all of these mechanisms regulate a cylinder which has valves in it, and the valves are made of leather. Originally, when I did maintenance on this hammer the first time, when I took out the cylinder, the valves were made of some kind of like woven belt-like material which was deteriorated, and the air was moving however it wanted, so the hammer was very badly controlled. Now when I put the leather in it, it works well, but it starts to work only well when the oil inside of it begins to shift around and saturates the leather so it's airtight. It doesn't work that way that you turn it on and it forges immediately. You have to turn it on and wait for it to work the oil all around its system. And if it's cold, the oil becomes too thick and it doesn't work again. And you have to put some, I don't know, thinner oil or something inside, and then it works again. But it's just so annoying if you have to do something very quick, where you heat a large piece of steel and you have to forge, and then you turn on the power hammer and it just pats the steel. It doesn't hammer, it just barely pats it, and it's just so annoying when it happens. But I mean, beggars can't be choosers. This thing cost me only 600 euros. Come on, it's just a golden deal anyways. And another problem with this hammer is that it doesn't have complete airtightness. For example, I broke off this bolt and most of the bolts that hold these caps are completely stripped off, and the inside threads of the holes are also stripped off. So many of these bolts are just held on miles and miles of Teflon tape, and it works. Maybe in the future, when Bitcoin reaches 300,000, I will buy myself a set of tap and dies and whatever you call them for fixing all of this, because right now it's just I just don't make enough for myself to have the leisure of just buying a set of tools like that just to fix everything. It works sort of, so it's enough for me. The huge paradox is, when I bought this hammer, I thought that I would use it daily, but the thing is, when you get back into forging, you do not make large stock projects, and you do not need a power hammer to begin. I actually, when I started forging, I only used the power hammer like heavily. Like for a real project, I used it only like more than a year later. So it's completely unnecessary in that regard. Now, it's a very difficult thing to think about, is whether to spend time that you could use doing multiple projects, fixing your home, or to take a lot of that time from your usual schedule and to show other young men in particular how to do all sorts of homesteading practices, because we live in a time where young men are being shunned because they're just men, especially if you're a white heterosexual male. It's just completely by default. And a lot of these young men grew up fatherless without any healthy male figure, and they're just trying to figure it out as they go. Maybe they just bought property, maybe just started, I don't know, homesteading as well, and they don't know how to, use a saw, use an axe, use a knife, forge something basic like nails, or just weld or anything like that. And everything I learned on my own, basically. I had many male teachers that I could call as good role models teaching me, but a lot of the stuff I had to learn on my own. And the best part of that learning is that you can use YouTube. Everything you can find on YouTube, how to do by yourself. So I think I'll try to keep the videos slightly educational, not just only vlogging. And I guess first you have to start doing it instead of talking. So I guess this is gonna be enough for my new video after a very long break. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you again on the next video.